What up, Leeds? Checking in. Welcome to the Leeds Edutainment Podcast, live on IG Live. Officially giving it a name. My boy Peter Parker's like, I gotta make everything a podcast, so that's what I'm doing. And today we're gonna be interviewing Edo G. I'm gonna type it in here right now. Sorry for the delay if anyone was waiting on it. Doubt anybody was waiting, just because people don't wait. But, type it in. Interview with Edo G. He's been patient with me. Had some last minute stuff pop up, so had to push this thing back. But we are here now. It's glare. Yes. Edo is now checked in. Here we go. I think he's coming in now. Is it coming in? Edo, you there? I tried to prove you. Edo, if you try to record. Oh, there he is.
Yeah, I had to allow it or whatever, my access. Peace.
Eddie, how are you?
I'm great, Ned.
The reason I say Eddie because you always call me Edward, so I had to throw it back in his face a little bit.
Yes.
It's good to talk to another fellow Ed.
Yes, exactly.
How's it going?
Man, everything is going pretty well, man. Can't complain, bro.
Yeah?
Cannot complain.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for doing this, man. We've known each other my whole career in the Boston music scene. You've always been good with me. We've always done good business. We've had our differences, but we've always kind of put them aside for the greater good of Boston hip hop, and
Exactly.
still have a relationship. And
Exactly.
it's a tough business, so crazy things are gonna happen sometimes. You know what I mean? And
yeah, we've had our our little tizzies back in the days, man. So and we learned to work through it as real, businessmen and gentlemen and just humans. We got to learn to deal with each other if we're gonna be all in these same spaces.
Yeah, and it's tough. The stress of the whole business. It can put make people see things differently. And sometimes you just got to step back. Take a breath and reevaluate what's good for everyone. And me and you, I think we've been able to do that in a lot of ways. So.
Yeah, for sure. I think, we definitely hashed out whatever our differences were and came to a cool medium. And we've been cool ever since, man.
That's cool. I wanted to do this obviously because we're talking about 30 years since Life of a Kid in the Ghetto, the album came out, and I just thought it was a good time to touch base, see face to face with COVID, and talk about what it was like back then. I think a lot of people, being 30 years, what was the Boston hip hop scene like in 1990, 91, or even the early 80s? What was going on back then?
I think we had kind of two different scenes. The 80s was one scene where there was a lot more venues that was open because it was so new. So you had a lot of black venues, even in the neighborhood itself, that, through talent shows and different stuff like that. A lot of the schools had their auditoriums open on the weekends for shows. So it was more available. The 90s, done. We didn't, 91, no places to perform. When I had to hit record, I ended up doing one show in Boston in that around 91, somewhere around there when the record was at the top of its place. I got to have it. We couldn't even perform in Boston because there was no venue. So we had to perform in a middle school in Cambridge.
So you say no venues. Was that because why did all the venues get shut down?
They weren't shut down. They just weren't doing hip hop.
Why was that?
Shows, too much violence, a lot of gang stuff. The late 80s, late 80s, 90s, a lot of fights, and a lot of the venues up here were pretty much they weren't touching hip hop. like that.
Yeah, because I mean, I remember we've talked about this before. I mean, I remember have to go to Rhode Island to see Biggie Smalls in '95. Any show I went to in the '90s was either in Worcester or Rhode Island. I didn't start driving to Boston until the late '90s at the Middle East.
Exactly, the Middle East was the change.
Yeah. So making that album, the first album there, and basically for those who don't know, this is the first like really Boston hip hop record, I would say. I mean, Gangstar was out, but they were in New York, repping New York. But you were really one of the first MCs to really come out of Boston with a big hit, right? Would I be fair to say that? Or
it's definitely fair. It's the truth. It's facts. It's edged in stone. It is what it is. I'm not a braggadocious type of guy or anything like that. So, yeah, I was the first I put. Basically, there were groups before me that came out and had major deals, but nobody had a #1 record. Nobody had 3 top 10 records, 4 top 20 records. Like, no one had that kind of lineage and what we did at the time. So, yeah.
Yeah. And now that first album, is that all produced by Joe Mansfield?
Yeah, except for one track is produced by Teddy Ted. But Joe did, basically the whole album. Yeah.
So you talk about Boston dudes getting deals. I mean, I've seen you speak about this before. Like, you had to still get the deal out of New York, though, right? Like, you guys went to New York and got the deal?
Yeah, there wasn't any record companies here in Boston, so you either had to go to New York or LA, to get a record deal back in the day. So, yeah, we went to New York, and thankfully I had cousins that were in the industry, so I was on them, and they're the ones who plugged me to Awesome too.
Now, was it like I Gotta Have It? Was everyone like, when you played that, was that like the joint that sealed the deal? Was that like a guaranteed smash? Like everyone you played for was like, let's do it off that? Or did that come later?
The honest thing is I got my record deal from I Gotta Have It wasn't even on the demo. We didn't record none of those songs until we got the record deal. So I got the record deal for the song Sometimes I Feel Like a Nut. They loved that song and gave me a record deal off of that record. And then once we signed, we started recording the album, and that's where I Gotta Have It, Be a Father, and Bugaboo. All of the rest of the songs came in. Only a few of the songs that was on the demo made the album.
Yeah, I mean, you put out something recently I saw. It was like Edo G demos, and it seemed like it was from that era. Is that what was the story with that project? Was that?
Yeah, that's just just some unreleased stuff, some old stuff that I'd had. I actually got it back from Traffic and re-uploaded it.
But was that joints that didn't make Life of a Kid?
Yeah, those were all the demos from first album, second album, just a bunch of stuff, a collection of stuff that we never put out, couldn't clear. A lot of the stuff was too sample heavy, and the label didn't want to clear the sample, too much money. So a lot of stuff like that on there, and demos.
What was the label for that album? What was that on?
Album, it was PW, the one we just
Life of a Kid. Life of a Kid.
Life of a Kid. It was PWL Mercury.
That was the label?
Yeah. PWL was the label, was the indie label that I was signed to. And I was signed to Mercury as well, which was the distributor of the indie label. So I had to sign 2 deals. It was weird.
How did you feel about the deal looking back on it? Did you think it was a bad deal? Like,
of course it was a bad deal. Everything was a bad deal. The first deal was always a bad deal. I mean, unless then it's going to be a bad deal. So, I mean, it was good. It was standard. There wasn't nothing where they were robbing and raping me or anything like that. It was a pretty much standard deal of the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I want to talk about 91. To me, that's like an interesting year because you're coming off of 1990, right, where you have Vanilla Ice and MC Hammer, real dancey era, right? And then you got kind of the conscious era in full swing, right? And then you got West Coast gangster rap kind of slowly taking over.
Yeah.
Where did you fit in all that? Like, where was it? Like, obviously you're in the conscious era, but like you put this album out in the middle of that. How did you know? It's a melting pot.
Yeah, I think music, because especially at the time, music was open to all different styles of music. It wasn't just like today, one style of music. You know what I mean? So, you had me, but you had, Native Tongues, you had De La, you had all of these different entities that, were representing where they were from, and, hip hop accepted it. So we just was being ourselves, trying to tell our story from Boston and let the world know about that. And, it definitely, people related to it. That's why it was successful.
You tore off that record worldwide or United States?
Not worldwide. We did a few shows overseas, Germany, Switzerland, and the UK a few times, and Japan. But it really wasn't touring. It was more like shows, a show. Fly over, do a show, do 2 shows in a weekend and back. It wasn't like a long, stretched out tour like we do now.
Yeah, wasn't there like a lot of big like festival type style bills, like big like what they doing like a lot of big acts on one show back then?
Exactly. It was pretty much more like that. So like the UK show we did, it was with a ton of people, R&B, hip hop, whole bunch of big name people at the same time. So those were more of the kind of shows we did, either solo shows or just a show with 5 other cats with hit records.
Right.
So
I did notice that when I see the old flyers, the bills are just so stacked.
Yeah,
it's
the bills
like ridiculous.
are amazing. They're amazing. It looks like a festival for every show. That would be a festival in today, and it was like $15 for all of these guys. Like, you know what I mean? So it was crazy.
Did your album did you get a lot of love in Boston for your album? Were you bigger outside of Boston?
Definitely a lot of love in Boston, all over, man. I mean, I think for everybody to see places in Boston that they knew in a video on TV, I think it made them feel like, yo, that's my city. That's like us. So, and that was the whole goal. You know what I mean? And I had a lot of beef with the label for trying to shoot videos. I wanted to shoot all the videos here, of course. I didn't get to shoot them all here. I only shot 3 out of the 6 that or whatever we did, however many we did, 5. So, I wanted to shoot them all here, man, but that's how it went.
And that was a pretty courageous move back then for you to want to stay in Boston and not go to New York. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to represent New York. I'm not from New York. It's mad fake for me. And being from Boston, we're here. We represent it. We love it. You know what I'm saying? This is us. So I wanted to represent that.
Yeah.
And plus,
so I just figured, like,
New York.
Go ahead.
I hated New York at the time. Like, I love New York, but I mean, come on. We have the Boston-New York rivalry. I didn't want people to think I was from there.
Yeah. I could see that. I just figured that people went to New York because the labels were there and the industry felt like it was there.
The best place to make it. The best place to make it. I mean, you couldn't make it here. You still can't make it here to that degree. You got to leave.
You got to have labels and tour, and you got to grow outside of here, which is always the big argument, right? Like, how do we fix that? But yet no one has really put that finger on the button.
I think one of the simplest solutions to fixing that is radio, is a real radio station that is dedicated to helping artists and breaking new records like they used to do back in the days, Right. That would change the dynamic of Boston if you had a big power station that could reach all over and really, be playing some local cats, man, and not with the local stigma. Just cats from the area.
Now let's talk about radio. So back in '91 and the '90s, and the radio was more open to that back then. It wasn't such a commercial, play the,
I mean, still didn't have stations. The only black station we had was WIOD back then.
Yep. Yep.
And they added my record. They were playing "Be a Father to Your Child" and "Bugaboo." So
Was that was an R&B station, wasn't it?
yeah, it was an R&B station, man, but it was the only black station we had for, I don't know, 40, 50, 60 years. And it was a great station because they were a real station. The only thing that sucked was they went off at 6 in the evening because they were only on through the day. So that was the only thing that sucked, man. But other than that, and then you would go transition to the college stations. So the college stations were big, but we still didn't have any regular radio that was playing the stuff. Not that we had Kiss 108, at that time.
Yeah, Kiss One. I don't think Kiss 108's playing it.
Yeah, Kiss 108 been around forever. So like that was it. We didn't have no other urban station in the city. There was none until the late 90s, early, I guess, 2000s when the real Hot 97 came to Boston.
Yep.
And then 94.5 changed their format to compete because it was a real station.
Right.
And they produced many celebrities from that station: Clinton Sparks, Static Selector, Chubby Chub, Roxy.
Shout out Peter Parker.
Peter Parker too. Exactly. I mean, like, look at how many people came from that station to go on and continue in, radio and have success in the entertainment field. So that's what a real radio station does.
Yeah.
It's a springboard for people to do, move on. Because radio people, it's you get new DJs. It's a kind of a rotating thing. So, but we don't have that here, man. So I think that's a big problem. And it will remain forever.
Yeah, that is that has been a struggling situation since I've been here, over the been promoting shows over the last, 17 years or so. I've seen the same struggles as all. And, and shout out 88.9 because they put a lot of stuff on the map because they were a college radio station, but they had such a big bandwidth, they could reach all of New England. And that was huge. I mean, I was in Southern New Hampshire at the time as a high school kid, and I could listen to all that stuff you're talking about from there. So 88.9 really, I think, helped a lot until that went down.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Now that's gone.
Yeah.
And
that's a, seems like it's, it's business, man. It's all turned big business. And, it's a tough business model to handle as well. I mean, I see a lot of stations going under. So it's a tough way to find a balance between that. People don't listen to radio as traditionally as they used to. It's not where people go first to hear their music.
Exactly.
So it's a tough machine.
I definitely understand the business part of it, but with all the stations we have here, somebody,
right?
One of those GMs or program directors can make some kind of change, not with a corny show late night when no one is going to hear it. You know what I mean?
Not the volunteer hour,
Yeah, exactly.
2 a.m. to 4 a.m. Nothing but local music. Yeah, thanks.
70 commercials and 3 songs. So get out of here. Nah, not gonna work. But yeah, whatever, man. We can vent our frustrations about radio here forever. It's never gonna change.
Yeah. So I want to go back to the 91. So you have this big album, right? And it's well received. What's the transition from there? Like from there, you dropped the second album, which is Roxbury. Forgive me, I don't know the zip code. It was the zip code.
02119.
And this is actually where this album is when I didn't have your album back in 91 when I first got it. I actually saw you off this album, the second album. You had a video. I think it was a bunch of girls in the shower. I don't really know what's going on.
Got that here in Boston. Yeah, that was
so like I was like, who's this guy? Edo G. He's got a bunch of girls in the shower. On Yo MTV Raps, I saw that back then, and that was the first joint. And but we'll talk about that album. What was the transition there? Like, talk about that process.
Yeah, making that album was dope. We kind of used the same people. Joe didn't produce the whole album. The label had just signed Diamond D.
Ah, that's right.
And they were like, "Yo, we got this new artist. I met Diamond, chopped it up with him, we'd like to get him to produce like half of the album if you
Yep.
interested. And I was like, yeah, let me hear some beats and, talk to Joe. Joe, you cool with that? He's like, yeah, he was cool too. He did half, and Diamond did the other half, and we had this other guy named Fries did a beat in there. So it was a cool album. The only thing, like with my label back then, Mercury, not the Mercury, you couldn't put out any 12 inches if your album wasn't done. And there were times when we were recording and we would have a new joint, like this hot off the presses. Let's press this up and, go to radio. And they're like, no, we need. So the protocols, were real stringent and stupid, because you had other labels. If they heard something hot, they would go press that joint up quickly. You know what I'm saying? And just get it out there, white label it. It doesn't matter. At that time, it's just for the DJs and the clubs, but they weren't that kind of label. They were really old school. And so, yeah, I think, during that album, we had a lot of dope songs that we didn't end up using on there because someone else used the sample before the album came out or something like that. Like when, back then it was like, you got the sample, you got to hurry up and get this out, be the first. So it was one of those kind of things, man. But overall album was dope, fun. Had a blast, man, doing it, and got to bring all my boys there on the back cover. Everybody, the whole crew was there, so it was nice.
Yeah, and shout out the Bulldogs. Diamond D, did Stunts, Blunts, and Hip Hop already be out? Was that already out before he started working with you, or was that?
I think it was all around the same time. Okay. When did that come out? 92 or 93?
I can't remember. I remember that being a big deal, though. I don't remember. I remember that album, and I think it's around that time. I just wasn't sure if it was before or after.
Yes, somewhere around there. So yeah, D, and then that's when I met him, and we knocked that out, and that was that. So yeah, it was a fun time. Working with Diamond was different because I had just worked with Joe, so I wasn't like working with other producers like that. You know what I'm saying? So it was dope experience.
Yeah, and so after that, in Mercury, after that, is the Mercury deal done? After that,
yeah. Well, I started recording the third album, and we did a maxi 12-inch single. And Ron Lawrence, who's a real famous producer, y'all Google him if you don't know who he is. He produced the track for me. And me and God Rest the Dead, my man Scientific, was on the record doing the hook. And we was kind of going at the label, at Mercury, on this particular record. So it kind of really soured the relationship more. And January,
was Scientific on the label too?
Nah, he was signed to not to Mercury. He was signed to my indie label. They had
MIA.
changed their name. No, not this is before MIA. His first album came out on I think, what was the name of that label? Direct Records or something like that. I can't even remember the name of it because it was the same label that was Chemistry that put out my second album. They changed their name.
Yeah.
They were PWL initially for the first album. And that was a guy from London, a famous dude named Paul Waterman. He had a label. And then he sold it to the guy who was running it. He changed the name to Chemistry. And then by the time Scientific had his deal in 93, they changed the name again to Definitive or Direct or some shit. I don't even know at that particular point. And then they went out of business as well.
Yeah. And for those who don't know, Scientific was from Lawtown, one of Massachusetts' finest, and unfortunately, rest in peace to him. But yeah, he was nice. I remember you guys. I remember hearing a Scientific joint with you, Scientific. I think it was produced by the RZA. As long as you know, is that the name of that one? That was a banger. No. That was a banger.
Banger. Super banger. Scientific was super ill. I produced the song Lawtown, so y'all can Google that too. And that's the Lawtown anthem. So I'm happy to be a part of Lawtown's anthemness.
Shout out Lawtown, Lawrence, for people that don't know Lawrence, Mass. Very interesting place. I ended up finding my car there one night.
I'm sure you would.
Yeah. My car went missing.
No joke.
Also, it was in Lawtown. Anyone from there, you know the deal.
Yeah.
But so the Mercury Records, unfortunately, is no longer exists from what I'm seeing here, and I can't stream these albums. Your album, Life of a Kid and Roxbury, they can't get them on streaming sites. Is that correct?
Yeah, they're owned by Universal. Universal bought all of Mercury's catalog.
Yes, we need to get them to put that stuff up on streaming.
Look, I've been beefing with Universal. We're going to bring a class action lawsuit to their ass.
Oh, that sounds ugly. Well, I mean, to be honest, let's just get that music up there, please.
Yeah.
You know, it needs to be heard. So the major label deals, they go away. And it's the mid-'90s at this point. It's 95, probably 96, whatever. And now we see the resurgence of the independent game. And this is when you talk about the Middle East start throwing shows. And kind of like you reinvented yourself in that era. You kind of put yourself back out there as, you know, it's obviously now at this point, it's just Edo G. It's not Edo G and the Bulldogs, but it's you as a solo independent artist. And talk about that era a little bit, because that's a very important. This is when I started going to shows in Boston. I'm older.
Yeah. I mean, around 96, we put out our first independent project. We put out some vinyl, a 6-song EP, Acting. And we sold about 13,000 or so independently, made a nice piece of money off of that. And, you know, and then at that same time, instead of me, I should have started my own label right then, but I didn't have that in my head. But a lot of indie labels started popping up around the same time. You had like Ruckus, you had all of these labels that were coming up and putting out a lot of 12 inches and Fat Beats, a bunch of labels were coming out at the time. So, you know, that was the new medium for me. And the Middle East doors was open. As you know, Tim, you know, messing around with Tim and O'Neill, and they were throwing shows there. Pete, the Governor, was throwing shows there. And, you know, there was a whole new crop of MCs that were coming up right at the time. The Acts, the Lifts, all of the people that we know now, Term, a bunch of people, Crumb Snatcher. So it was just a great time for hip-hop in Boston. It was like a resurgence, and there were a lot of new guys coming up that were dope, and we all kind of merged together, you know, and formed that community, which is our community still to this day.
Yeah, and it's crazy.
That.
And it's crazy. And then you also, like I said, 88.9 and Coordinate is now fully running. Middle East is throwing all these shows. And which is crazy to me that there's no 90s hip hop shows until the Middle East.
Exactly.
Like I remember you saying that Snoop Dogg in the peak of his career couldn't come to Boston.
Yeah, I performed with him in 2000 at Access before they closed it. It was one of their last shows. I opened up for him, just Edo G and Snoop.
I love it.
Nobody else.
I love it.
And that was his first time ever performing here in 2000. And he came out in 92. You know, like, so come on. Snoop, never. You know, Boston just wasn't open for shows. Now you can see Snoop DJing at the Encore. Like now it's a totally different. So
do you think people, and to clarify that, you know, was it people were scared of hip hop in the 90s?
Yeah, I mean,
was it just fear? Was it really? Is the violence that bad?
Too. It was racism too. I mean, a lot of these club owners didn't want a bunch of black kids in their club, just to be straight and honest, you know. And then on top of that, if they're gonna be fighting, and you know, it's even worse. So they were scared, and plus, you know, there was really, the 90s was really violent. There was a lot of gunplay at, you know, like, we don't, thank God, knock on wood, you know, you're not going to see people outside the Middle East shooting after the show, like some crazy shit. So back then, that's the type of stuff that would go on, you know what I mean? And fights inside. So they just, you know, it wasn't no spots. I mean, maybe the Rat Sculler, you had some rock clubs that, you know, were willing to do it. They didn't give a fuck. They were fine with it. You know what I'm saying? Because they played punk, and hip hop was kind of the same genres of people, you know, rebellious. So, you know, you had a couple of little spots like that, but not a lot.
Yeah.
Out to the Western Front too, because they were doing things back then.
Yeah, and I did many shows at the Western Front.
Yeah, exactly.
Which was, it was a reggae club, but they just kind of made it into, they did hip hop too.
Yeah, they were open to have us in there. That was the thing. Like, you know what? You guys can come in there and do your thing.
Now, do you think that was because they were in Cambridge versus being in Boston, like
Roxbury? Because they were black.
What? No, the venues being in Cambridge.
In Cambridge, I think Cambridge is way more liberal than Boston, of course.
Right.
You know, it's super liberal, so it's everybody, let's hug. It's, you know, it's a nice of Cambridge. Yeah. So they're more open to, you know, to doing stuff. Because I'm sure if, you know, Tim and O'Neill could have found a venue in Boston, they probably would have.
Yep.
And that could be the Middle East right now, you know, the equivalent of what it is. But they probably looked around, and those guys probably gave them the best option to do what they wanted to do. Yeah.
And, you know, Tim and O'Neill, people we talk about is a company, Metro Concepts. And I interned for these guys as well. They were an all-encompassing promotions company. They were doing guerrilla marketing when that was really big, and then they obviously managed you, Lyft, ACK, and a bunch of other people. They had their hands in a lot of pots and did a lot of things, and they really they really did a lot for the Boston hip hop scene and in the nationwide scene, because they were running street teams nationwide as well.
Yeah, they had it on lock, man. They had it on lock. I seen them go from little office to huge office, you know. So they definitely did their thing, man, until they retired from the game.
It was crazy too when they retired. It was like a light switch went off. It was so fast. It was like the industry was crashing, obviously, because of downloading and stuff, and marketing budgets got cut, and those guys were like, all right,
we're done.
We did it. We're done.
Hip hop thing. Now we're gonna get some real jobs.
Yeah, and this is when I come
run some companies.
Yeah, and this is when I come in and I start throwing shows when they're pretty much on their way out, and all they would tell me is, "Don't do this. Don't throw shows. It's the most stressful thing." And I was just so eager. Like, I was just, 20-something and just like, I'm going to throw shows, because I was going to shows. And I'd been to all you guys' shows, and I was like, this is what this was like what I wanted to do. Really the only place where thought I could fit in, because the industry was so volatile at that point. No one knew how to make a buck selling music, because it was downloaded for free.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but yeah, the Middle East, the legacy that coming into it that you're talking about, like all those shows back then, your Truth Hurts album release party.
Super dope.
Let's talk about that album. And that was like kind of like your big follow-up after the major label deals. That was a great album.
That was my first solo album. Like, that was the start of the Edo G era.
Right.
Like, that was the real start. So, that album was super dope. Shout out again to Tim and O'Neill, because they plugged me to get me the record deal.
What label was that on?
It was on Ground Control.
Now, these are indie labels at this point. Ground Control.
Yeah, this was a Cali label, but they were good indie labels. Like, they had Freestyle Fellowship, AC Alone, Cali Agents. They had a lot of cool groups from the West Coast on that label, and a nice following, for the label, because they were kind of one of those little niche labels, I like to call them. good time. Nice budget. Everything great. We did a dope tour. We played at the Middle East. Sold out show. Like, it was just a insane time. So even though it was crashing with the downloads and all of that, the people were participating heavy, because that tour in 2001, and that was in the U.S. I mean, it was mainly, sold out everywhere we went except for a few places.
How big were the venues you were playing on that tour?
They range. Some of them I'll probably say up to maybe like 800 people or something like that.
Crazy.
Yeah, it was really nice. It was a good tour. It was a good lineup, and it was a label tour, so it was really dope, man. So that album, I had everybody you could think of on that album. DJ Premier, Pete Rock, Guru. I had freaking Black Thought on there, Souls of Mischief, Jason and R.I.P. Big Warren were on the album. Yeah, that was a dope album, man. I mean,
is that your favorite? Is that your favorite album?
No, it's not my favorite album, but that's it's definitely up there, just because it was the start of something else. Yeah, so that one. But the only reason it wouldn't be one of my favorite, because there's too many features on it. I'm not like, if I'm gonna collab, we'll do a collab album, but I'm not gonna. I kind of felt like I was pressured to do a lot of features on that album, because in that particular time frame, everyone was asking, "Who's on your album? Who's producing your album?"
Right.
That was that thing at that particular moment. It was like, you gotta have, producers. We need to know that's gonna help you sell the album.
Right.
Your producers. So,
and this is like 1999, 2000, I think, right around that time.
Exactly. The album came out in 2001, so we recorded it 2000, late 99. So yeah, it was that era. So I filled it up. You know what I mean? Like, that's my most featured up album.
Yeah. Because you're right. Though. I mean, all of a sudden it did become about the features. Who's going to be on your album? That was like, I think I really started noticing that around like 98. That was like a big thing that was like starting to happen. And so now you go out of your way not to have a lot of features. Is that what it is?
No, it's definitely not that. But I just felt that pressure in that particular album to do a bunch of features, because everybody was on it like that. So, I did it. And not reluctantly, because of course I wanted to do a song with Guru and all of these other people that I admired, in the business. But it was just that pressure. I like to not have that kind of pressure to, worried about. Now it's cool. I don't have to, as long as it sounds good, it doesn't matter who did it. That's the era we're in now.
Right.
Which is great.
So, like, from that point, you've always been pretty much a conscious rapper. You're not going to hear any wild, crazy, violent shit.
Not too wild. I mean, a little bit, but not.
You might vent. Mm-hmm. You'll vent, but
nothing crazy.
You've maintained that. I mean, I think that's important. You see a lot of rappers try to change with the times, right? Like I'm going to do this, so I'm going to do this is working, so I'm going to do that, and that's not your story. No. Your story is I'm Edo G. This is me. I'm conscious, dude. I speak these lyrics, and they're good lyrics, and I'm not going to do anything outside of that. I'm not going to, because this is working in the mainstream. I'm going to do that. I mean, I got to give it to you for that, man.
I appreciate it.
That's discipline, and that's staying true to yourself. Do
you
find that difficult, or was that just a standard you kept to yourself too?
Yeah, it's just a standard, man, because this is the type of music that I like to do. So it's enjoyable. I don't want to do music that I don't like it just because it's popular. Like, that would be terrible. It wouldn't come out either. So for me, it's more like, just keep doing what you've been doing. Stick to what what you're good at, and make that, the best you can make it. And keep, building on that.
And how many albums now are we talking that you've put
About
out?
14, 15, somewhere around there. I have to do the math.
So now 14, 15 albums later, still in the game.
Yeah.
Seen hip hop go through so many different transitions.
Yeah.
Where are you at now?
Man, I'm in like the best place I could be in as far as musically and writing and just putting together projects and stuff like that. I'm in a real cool space. My last album that I put out was 2017, Freedom, and
Yep.
I toured that for about 2 years up until the pandemic. Like about 2019, we stopped touring that. So that, I wanted to do like just doing things like not coming right back out with another album. Just that's what people do. And people want you, oh man, where's your next slow? This project, I really want you to, get and eat it and take your time with it. So now, 2020, I was going to release the new album, but the pandemic hit and, put a pause on that. So this year I got so many projects coming out, man. I'm definitely going to surpass 20 albums,
Well, we hope so.
This year and next year. They're already done too. These are things that are ready to go soon. The first thing I got coming is a collaboration album with me and Insight, called Edo G Insight. It's on Brick Records.
Nice.
Coming out the end of May. Dope album. Insight produced the whole thing, and man, it's just some boom bap, real good hip hop shit, man.
Right. And for those that don't know, you're more than an artist. You've got your hands in a lot of different things. We've worked together as promoters. You're not even performing.
Yeah.
You've been, you've thrown parties. You really are trying to make it work however possible.
Listen, I mean, because, you can't just limit yourself to just rapping. At least I can't. You know what I'm saying? I there's a bunch of things that I can do too. Besides that, that's all encompassing the business.
I want to talk briefly about what we talked on the phone about the other day, because this got me excited. And I think you're onto something here, and that is the virtual reality parties you've been throwing.
Let me grab my glasses.
Oh, here we go. This is going to be entertaining.
I'm not going to put them on.
We got to put them on. We got to put them on.
So you guys can see.
No, we're putting them on. We need to see Edo in virtual reality.
So you guys just can see what they look like. That's real big.
Okay. So
on the Oculus Quest, you got to get
these. So I'm going to recap what we talked about. Is basically you're throwing these parties with virtual reality goggles where people are just in there in avatars or not, and as DJs. Yeah. Please explain to everybody a little more what's going on with these things.
Okay, listen, VR is coming. It's coming fast to everybody. Soon you will all be in VR at some point within a year or so. But what it is it's virtual reality. We're in this app called AltSpace. And inside of this particular app, they do live events. There's a bunch of different stuff going on in there. And we've been throwing parties. My man built the Wild Style Amphitheater in the park. So we have a virtual, it looks just like Wild Style, like you've seen in the movie. We have the park, and we've been throwing parties in there, the Park Jam. We've been doing that. We did one. We're doing another one the 20th of this month. It's coming up. Different DJs. I think we got Large Professor DJ in this one too. We got a bunch of people in there. So what we started is called Hip Hop in VR, basically. And, we want to be the all-encompassing umbrella for everything hip hop in VR. And that's basically what we're doing. So we're doing shows. Me and Razcast, we're doing a show April 2nd. It's a ticketed event. I'm gonna have that on my Instagram, people, so you can click and cop that. and you don't have to have the glasses to watch it. You can watch it regular on your computer too, but you're not going to experience it like you're actually in the show if you don't have the goggles.
Yeah. So I put these goggles on, and like, I'm in the wild style party, and everybody else has got goggles. I can see them in virtual reality.
You can see, you create an avatar,
right?
And you'll see everybody else's avatar, and it's so cool when you're in there. Like, you can point your joystick at a person, and it'll tell you who they are above the head, and you're having a regular conversation like me and you right now. But it's just our avatars. It's our voices. We're talking, and everything can move but your legs. They don't have no legs.
So people, do you move like you physically moving, or do you just?
You're moving and you move around, but you kind of fly more so because you don't have legs. You only got it up to your knees.
Okay.
But you're not really looking at that. You're talking to somebody, so it's
I gotta see this.
And everything. It's really cool, man. You can go there today. My boy is throwing a party tonight, and you can go watch his party on your computer and see what's happening inside of there. I'll give you the link when we get off.
People can go to your site and get this information.
Where
can they go?
On Instagram, go to hip hop HHNVR.
Okay, cool.
That's the Instagram page, and the website will be up launching next month.
Yeah. And what do you have planned for? And this is great, everybody. This has got me intrigued, and I don't really get super intrigued about events because I've been doing it for so long. But this is something different.
I need you in here, buddy.
I'm coming. It's not going to be this weekend because I'm going skiing, but soon I'm coming. Yeah. What are you doing? What are you doing special for the Life of a Kid anniversary? I saw some tapes. What do we got going on there?
So we put out a tape. You can get that. That's go to my page, my profile, and hit that link. You can grab the tape there. So we put out a 30th anniversary tape. We kind of just re-released the first album with the 30th anniversary seal, and we put a unreleased song on there from the demo tapes at the end. So a little special thing. But what we're doing is a new album, Edo G and the Bulldogs. We have a new album recorded, pretty much almost done. Got to get it mixed and mastered. So me and the Bulldogs are rapping. It's all of us. One album. It's called 91 to 21. And we're going to put that out sometime this summer with 2 documentaries. One of us in Japan in the 90s, and one of my boy Black, who was one of the Bulldogs. He's on the cover. He went to jail soon as the record came out and did 20 years. So we're going to have those 2 stories in there with the new album. And then I got my new solo album coming. A few more collaborative albums with some producers over from Europe. An album with Razcast and Shabam Sadiq and my man Focus too. Bunch of projects, man. Just coming, they're just waiting. I'm just waiting now. So everything is this time it's all about to start dropping.
Yeah, and you're waiting because you rely heavily on touring and mainly in Europe, right? Like that's the big way you promote yourself.
We're going to be doing probably the end of the year into next year. I know there'll be some touring for sure next year. So, it's no rush. I got, the project with Insight coming out first, so we're going to be promoting that and, doing some stuff with that. And then the Edo G and the Bulldogs is going to come out probably sometime late summer, and my house thereafter.
And I was wondering, what is the difference between, for people that don't know, like touring in Europe, the shows in Europe, compared to the shows in the United States? What's the difference there?
It's a different energy, and it just depends on where you're at in the United States too. Because I don't want to give the States a bad rap, because a lot of our shows are dope here too. It's just the energy. I just think in Europe there are more opportunities because, like here you don't normally tour a state. Like no one comes really and does Massachusetts, like spring west all the way to east and down to the Cape. Like there you can go and do just Germany. And you can do 10 shows or 20 shows. You could go just do Switzerland. Or you could do a tour where you're doing UK, Switzerland, France. You're bouncing all around. So there's many different options over there. And, you know, they love boom bap hip hop. So, I mean, that's why we stay over there and we tour over there a lot because they fuck with us. You know what I'm saying? They fuck with us.
And what's your favorite? What country you get the best response out over there?
Man, all of them are really great, man. Eastern Europe has a different energy than Western Europe. Western Europe, you know, you could, you know, I mean, they're mainly like America in the West, you know, of Europe. But in the East, it's a little more grimy. It's a little more, you know, not up to, everything's not up to date. And the energy there is just really, you know, it's crazy. They really like Poland, Slovakia, all of those places, energy's ill. But
and
I
everybody
love
kind of, and everybody kind of speaks English over there too, right? Like they understand the lyrics.
Everybody speaks, a few different languages. That's one thing that America is messed up for. Like, we really should have learned another language in school. Like, everybody took.
They tried. I mean, my school
learned.
tried to teach me Spanish. I just didn't absorb it.
I learned French, but no one learned. Like, and maybe one out of everyone that took a freaking language class learned. So it's not like there. Everybody speaks 2-3 languages, man. Like, depending on where you at.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna wrap this up. This was awesome, man. It was great talking to you, man, and catching up. And you know, we'll figure out some way to do some more business. We always do. And shout out to you. In 30 years, man, in the rap game, that is not for those that don't know. That is not a common scenario to still be doing it as consistently, putting out material and figuring it out. 30 years, man. I don't see a lot of that. And I've seen a lot, but I don't see that much.
Word up.
Cool, Edo. So, thank you. And good luck to all. And I'm sure we'll be talking soon.
Yeah, we're definitely going to talk. Let me know when you get the goggles. Just holler at me.
Oh, yeah, I'm getting them.
Okay.
All right, bro.
All right, peace.
Peace.